Hello everybody! If you want to read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you! Short story 559, The Cat Who Wanted to Be a Dog. Beginner. In a small, peaceful town nestled between rolling green hills and a sparkling river, there lived a cat named Whiskers. Whiskers was not like other cats. While his feline friends spent their days napping in sunbeams or battling at dangling strings, Whiskers had a peculiar dream. He wanted to be a dog. Every morning, Whiskers would watch from his windowsill as the neighbourhood dogs bounded through the streets, tails wagging, tongues lolling happily. There was Max, the golden retriever, who fetched sticks with unmatched enthusiasm. Bella, the playful beagle, who sniffed every flower and bush with intense curiosity. And even tiny Pippin, the dachshund, who barked at everything from squirrels to passing cars. Whiskers envied their carefree lives and longed to join their adventures. One sunny afternoon, Whiskers decided he had had enough of just watching. He trotted over to Max, who was lounging in his yard, and cleared his throat. "Max," Whiskers began, "I have a question for you." Max lifted his head and blinked at Whiskers. "Yes, my feline friend, what can I do for you?" Whiskers took a deep breath. "I want to be a dog. Can you teach me how?" Max tilted his head, his ears perking up in surprise. "But Whiskers, you're a cat. Cats and dogs are different. You purr, we bark. You climb trees, we dig holes." "I know," Whiskers said earnestly, "but I want to try. Please, Max, teach me how to be a dog." Max chuckled, his tail thumping against the grass. "All right, Whiskers, I'll help you, but let's start with the basics." First, Max taught Whiskers how to bark. Whiskers stood tall, took a deep breath, and let out a loud meow. Max burst into laughter. "That's not a bark, Whiskers. Try again." Whiskers tried once more, but all that came out was another loud meow. He frowned. "This is harder than I thought." Next, Max showed Whiskers how to fetch. He tossed a stick across the yard and said, "Go get it." Whiskers dashed after the stick, his paws kicking up dust. He grabbed it in his mouth and proudly brought it back. But instead of dropping it at Max's feet, he scurried under the porch and hid it behind a pile of old leaves. Max scratched his ear, puzzled. "Cats sure are odd," he muttered. Finally, Max attempted to teach Whiskers how to wag his tail. Whiskers wiggled his hindquarters, but his tail remained perfectly still. "I can't do it," he sighed, flopping onto his side in frustration. Max saw the disappointment in Whiskers' eyes and nudged him gently with his nose. "You know, Whiskers, there's nothing wrong with being a cat. You're great at climbing trees, sneaking up on birds, and curling up in cozy laps. Why do you want to be something you're not?" Whiskers thought for a moment. He loved the way his claws retracted when he walked, how he could fit into the tiniest spaces, and how soft his fur felt when he groomed himself. Maybe Max was right. Maybe being a cat wasn't so bad after all. Over the next few weeks, Whiskers stopped trying to be a dog. Instead, he embraced his feline nature. He spent his days exploring the garden, chasing butterflies, and napping in sunlit patches. Sometimes he even joined Max and the other dogs for playful chases around the neighbourhood, though he always made sure to keep his distance when they got too rowdy. One evening, as Whiskers curled up on his favourite windowsill, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, he felt a deep sense of contentment. He no longer wished to be a dog. He was proud to be Whiskers, the curious and adventurous cat. And so, Whiskers learned that being true to oneself is far more rewarding than trying to be someone or something else. He may not have been a dog, but he was a wonderful cat, and that was more than enough. Vocabulary notes. Nestled. Definition: to be situated comfortably or snugly in a place. Example: in a small, peaceful town nestled between rolling green hills and a sparkling river. Similar words: settled, tucked, placed. Peculiar. Definition: strange or unusual in a way that is interesting. Example: Whiskers was not like other cats, he was peculiar. Similar words: odd, unique, strange. Enthusiasm. Definition: intense and eager enjoyment, interest or approval. Example: Max, the golden retriever, who fetched sticks with unmatched enthusiasm. Similar words: excitement, passion, zeal. Carefree. Definition: without any worries or concerns. Example: Whiskers envied their carefree lives and longed to join in their adventures. Similar words: relaxed, easygoing, happy-go-lucky. Bound. Definition: to move or jump forward with energy and enthusiasm. Example: every morning, Whiskers would watch from his windowsill as the neighbourhood dogs bounded through the streets. Similar words: sprint, dash, leap. Lolling. Definition: to hang loosely or relax in a lazy manner. Example: Max, the golden retriever, who fetched sticks with unmatched enthusiasm, tails wagging, tongues lolling happily. Similar words: dangling, drooping, hanging. Curiosity. Definition: a strong desire to know or learn something. Example: Bella, the playful beagle, who sniffed every flower and bush with intense curiosity. Similar words: interest, inquisitiveness, wonder. Trotted. Definition: to walk or run with short, quick steps. Example: one sunny afternoon, Whiskers decided he had had enough of just watching. He trotted over to Max. Similar words: strolled, ambled, marched. Earnestly. Definition: in a serious and sincere manner. Example: Whiskers took a deep breath and said earnestly, "I want to be a dog." Similar words: sincerely, seriously, wholeheartedly. Frustration. Definition: a feeling of annoyance or dissatisfaction resulting from unfulfilled needs or unmet expectations. Example: Whisker tried once more, but all that came out was another loud meow. He frowned in frustration. Similar words: disappointment, irritation, exasperation. Embrace. Definition: to accept or support something willingly or enthusiastically. Example: over the next few weeks, Whiskers stopped trying to be a dog. Instead, he embraced his feline nature. Similar words: adopt, welcome, cherish. Contentment. Definition: a state of happiness or satisfaction. Example: he felt a deep sense of contentment. He no longer wished to be a dog. Similar words: satisfaction, pleasure, joy. Adventurous. Definition: willing to take risks or try out new methods or experiences. Example: he was proud to be Whiskers, the curious and adventurous cat. Similar words: bold, daring, enterprising. Story written by Lumo AI. Image created by Grok 3 AI. To read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a story that's simple but, really powerful. It's all about identity, and it centers on a cat named Whiskers.
I mean, have you ever wished you were someone else? It's a feeling we all get, right? That little voice that says, what if? Well, our story today is about a character who takes that feeling and really runs with it in a pretty unusual way. So, let's meet him. This is Whiskers, and in a town full of cats who are totally happy just being cats, he was different. While all the other felines were chasing mice or snoozing in a patch of sun, Whiskers had this secret, this really peculiar dream.
Okay, so here we are, a cat's peculiar dream. And what was that dream, you ask? Simple. He wanted to be a dog.
And yeah, that desire, it wasn't just strange, it was peculiar. Unusual in a way that really made him stand out. While all the other cats were happy with their quiet little lives, Whiskers would just sit for hours glued to his window, completely mesmerized by this other world he just had to be a part of.
And what did he see out that window? A whole world of what looked like pure, carefree fun. There was Max, the golden retriever, who could get so excited over a plain old stick. Then there was Bella the beagle, whose nose was always on a mission. And even little Pippin, barking his head off at everything. For Whiskers, that wasn't just a bunch of noise. That sounded like freedom.
All right, so now Whiskers decides to actually do something about it. Watching just wasn't cutting it anymore. It was time to stop dreaming and start doing. So he goes and finds the friendliest dog he knows. That's Max, the golden retriever, and he asks him for help. A very direct request.
Max, as you can imagine, was a little surprised, but he tried to explain it as simply as he could. Look, Whiskers, he said, we're just different. You guys purr, you climb trees, we bark, we dig holes. But was Whiskers listening? Nope. He was totally convinced he could learn.
So Max, seeing how determined his little feline friend was, finally gave in. He agreed to help. He came up with this whole 3-step training plan. First up, learning how to bark. Then, learning how to fetch. And for the grand finale, the all-important tail wag. This was it. This was Whiskers' big chance. All right, next section, the lessons in failure. Because, Whiskers was ready to go. But trying to be a dog? Yeah, it's a lot harder than it looks. Let's just take the fetching lesson, for instance. Max throws the stick. Whiskers, so proud of himself, tears after it. And then, his cat instincts totally kick in. He grabs the stick, scurries right under the porch, and hides his new treasure. Max is just left there shaking his head, probably thinking, man, cats are weird. So the barking lesson? That just ended up being a really loud meow. And the tail wagging? Total disaster. Just a kind of twitchy failure. He was completely defeated. Whiskers just flopped over on his side, feeling this overwhelming sense of frustration. He just couldn't be the dog he wanted to be so badly. Max sees how bummed out his friend is, so he gives him a gentle nudge. And then he asks this really simple but incredibly powerful question. A question that changes everything. He just says, why do you want to be something you're not? And those words, they just hung in the air. It totally stopped Whiskers in his tracks. Okay, now we're getting to the heart of it. Embracing his inner cat. Because that one little question, it sparked a huge shift. For the very first time, Whiskers wasn't thinking about how to become a dog. He was thinking about the cat that he already was.
And he started to see everything in a new light. Those retractable claws, they weren't just for climbing, they were for walking around super quietly, like a little ninja. His slender body wasn't just for naps, it meant he could fit into the tiniest, coziest spots. He'd been so focused on everything he wasn't that he completely forgot about all the incredible things he was.
So, over the next few weeks, something changed. Whiskers stopped all the dog training. Instead, he started to really embrace being a cat. I mean, not just put up with it, but actually celebrate it. He started finding this new kind of joy in things like chasing butterflies with that silent grace of his, and just exploring the garden on his own cat terms.
And that brings us to the end of his little journey. We see him back in his favorite spot, curled up on the windowsill, just watching the sunset. But this time is different. For the first time in forever, he isn't wishing he was somewhere else or someone else. He just feels this deep, quiet peace, a real contentment. He was finally proud to be exactly who he was meant to be. Whiskers, the wonderfully peculiar cat.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. The power of being you. What does this cat story really teach all of us? What's the real power here?
Well, the central lesson from Whiskers' whole adventure is pretty straightforward, but so important. The real prize in life, the biggest reward, doesn't come from trying to be somebody else. It comes from fully and truly embracing all the things that make you, you. For him, being a wonderful cat, that turned out to be more than enough. And that really leaves us with just one last question to think about. Whiskers had his silent paws and his love for a good sunbeam. So, what makes you wonderfully you? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.